If you ever find yourself with unresolved issues with your parents, you will notice them showing up with your children. Now the past is threatening to be your destiny. I've been saying it for years, but no one's hearing my plea. Disorder transforms when you change the story. The suffering dissolves. Inside you is the key. The illness doesn't have to be your reality. You got to wake up and take over the responsibility. Pills don't teach skills. You gotta look inside if you wanna find the answer to your ills. Pills don't teach skills. Covering the truth in exchange for your dollar bills. Welcome everybody. My name is Dr. Nima Rahmany, and you are here on our third episode of Trigger Proof, a show designed to help people who are stuck in relationship limbo or career limbo clear whatever's stopping them from getting powerfully aligned, upgraded in their intimacy to go to the next level. And I love teaching people how to do that because my mess is my message. We love teaching what we most needed to learn. Please do not hesitate to ask questions, engage. I'm gonna do everything I can to answer all the questions. Welcome if you're brand new to the show. And for those of you returning, I am so grateful. I'm grateful that from the feedback as well that I'm getting in my inbox, how the things that I'm sharing on this show is actually resonating with you. It's helping you become more responsible for your reactivity. I say this every time, and I'm gonna say it again. Being trigger proof does not mean being trigger less. It means being trigger savvy and responsible for what activates us and causes all sorts of problems instead of pointing the finger and blaming other people, and are finding that they are at the mercy of the two most important external factors that govern the human being, which is external criticism, huge fear of that, or external approval and validation. So these two external forces seem to be taking over, causing a disconnection from self, which then ripples into every area of your life, relationships, your business and your work and career, and most importantly, it affects your health. I come from a healthcare provider's standpoint, and I saw patient after patient coming in with stress-related problems, and I just wanted to go upstream and help them get to the underlying root cause. And the root cause, when you go all the way upstream, seems to be a disconnection from who they are with respect to what their purpose is. And so I love teaching these principles to get these amazing, incredible results, because everybody really, what I've discovered when patients are coming in to see me with these problems, everybody really wants the same thing. We want to feel connected and intimate in our relationships. We want to feel like we belong in a community. We like to feel like we're making a contribution of some sort, and we're receiving in fair exchange for what we're giving, and we want to feel like we're connected to something greater. When you get that part right, you have an ability to be resilient. External criticism, external feedback doesn't cause you to be so swayed and affect your hypothalamic pituitary axis, which is your fight or flight or freeze stress response. How you sense, perceive, and interact with your world and your relationships makes a profound difference in your health, and I wanted to explore that. And I'm going to encourage you on episode number 3, where we're talking about how your past bleeds into your present, and how literally nothing that you're going through right now that's challenging you is actually coming from right now. It is a past, unconscious, incomplete. Freud calls it the repetition compulsion, where you're literally seeing that incomplete from your past. And we're going to talk about how to clear that, because when you really get it right and you're able to transform those past resentments, the things that are constraining you right now don't actually constrain you. I'm going to encourage you to ask questions. I'm going to read every single feedback. It's always welcome. I'm going to do my very best to answer them. I'm going to give you everything I got in all of these episodes, and if you want more help, you know exactly where to look, and you can just send a message, and I'm happy to assist you. This is why we do this show. If you haven't watched the first 2 episodes, please do. They're available right on the timeline, or they're gonna be up on YouTube. This is really about this journey that I went through, why this is important for me as a chiropractor, helping people with these stress-related problems. It wasn't until I experienced massive setbacks in my career, in my relationship. I've gone through divorce. It's through failure after failure and me going from an unconscious state to try to figure out exactly what's going on, where I actually started to figure out, oh, I was the one at cause for most of the problems. See, most of the time when people reach out for help, there's a finger pointing that's done from somebody in their past that we attribute those constraints to. And when you have one finger pointing at someone, there's three fingers pointing right back at you. And the work entailed to actually get yourself to that next level, in that transitional anxiety outside of getting either dialed back into a relationship or moving on and separating in a powerful and conscious way, or really moving up the ladder with your career. Every level up that you go through actually brings the devil up. And it's required this, what I call the intimacy upgrade, to help you get to that next level, to help you get more empathetic, to help you get more deeply intimate, a deep connection with who you are and the value and service that you bring to the universe, as well as deep, intimate connections, so that when the triggers come up, instead of being reactive, you can actually be responsive, so that you can create more harmony in your relationships, so that you can feel deeply connected with yourself. Your self-confidence starts to rise, and you feel like you actually can make a contribution, whereas before the voices of I'm not good enough and the imposter syndrome actually start to take over. Let me know if anything I'm saying is relevant for you. The intimacy upgrade that we talked about in episode number 1 was all about balancing that nervous system regulation. If your nervous system is under dysregulation, then your ability in relationships, you're not very trigger proof, because you're on a high anxiety level and you get easily triggered, little things, because you're tweaked, you're on alert. So we talked about that on our last episode. Today, we're gonna be talking about clearing past resentments. Next week, we're gonna actually be talking about how to dance with your dark passenger, your ego. It's this really neat form of shadow work that we do that's connected with the wounded inner child that we all carry around with these emotional wounds. And I love teaching that. And then of course, we're gonna talk about empathic communication and the importance of community and being committed. So I wanted to start off with a story. I had a client of mine coming in and she reached out and she basically said, my work and career is awesome. She's killing it, she's crushing it. She loves what she does, she knows what she's really good at. She is a venture capitalist who has an ability to go into boardrooms with really hardcore, narcissistic, like completely one-dimensional men and be able to kind of lead the room. That's what we discovered what her superpower was. But her personal life was in ruin, complete ruin. She was dealing with anxiety every day, not able to sleep. She was dealing with relationships that were continuously breaking down again and again and again and again. And she was not able to have a personal life with a really deeply intimate relationship. She was like, my life is a complete mess. So what we did, basically, I explained to her, and she almost didn't start working on it because she was afraid of looking in her past, because she's so resentful towards her father. And she had spent probably close to $700,000 on therapy to try to solve this problem. She's looking at me, she's saying, how is this, what you're going to do, be any different? And I explained to her, I basically showed her this model. This is the model that I actually had to go through when I pretty much went from a toxic relationship, which I take 100% responsibility for the creating of, to take a look at that and really humble myself and go, holy crap, I've been so unconscious for so long. I need to piecemeal together a healing road to recovery. And when I did, this is what emerged. And so I explained this to her, that when you clear those past resentments, even though it's going to be painful to look there, and we're going to actually recontextualize and change that story after, all the while we're working at regulating and retuning your nervous system, we go to clearing these past resentments. It's going to take us to really look, and there's going to be tears involved. There's going to be all sorts of emotions that are going to bumble up. That's what we're going to do. And so we got to work on it, and within 2 sessions, we took her past trauma that she was experiencing for a period of about 10 years with her father. And she, through the power of self-inquiry, was able to see through these series of questions, which I'm going to share with you right now, she was able to see that what was once in the way constraining her that she never wanted to look at, and that resentment that she was having towards her father was actually crippling her in the present time. So what I'd love for you to do is to ask yourself 2 questions right now, just so that you can make this relevant for you. Question number 1 is, what's the biggest resentment that's constraining me in my life right now? What is going on? Is it a work thing with somebody, people at work? Is it a collision that you're having with your team? Or is it a collision in your relationship? I got off the call with somebody yesterday who 2 years ago dealt with an infidelity in her marriage and literally has not been able to find herself since then. She's just completely thrown off the rails and it's impacted her. And so the question that I have right now is, what's the greatest resentment that you're dealing with right now? And take a moment, I'd love to hear that. Oh, thank you, Ben. You've been seeing great transformative results with neurological issues. God bless you, brother. I'm glad that it's been making a difference. We're working on this. This is the part that we've been really focusing on. But I'm gonna get you to ask yourself that question. What specifically is it that has been constraining me? What resentment? Who am I resentful towards? You could be driving in your car and there's a past lover that you haven't really gotten complete with, or your current partner, or somebody at work that you have resentment towards. Now, please understand this. You can even write this down. Resentment is like taking poison and expecting the other person to die. Okay? Resentment is like taking poison and expecting the other person to die. It makes it 10 times more important. You think you're doing yourself a favor by holding on to that, but it's actually impacting your nervous system. It is causing you to be easily triggered. These are emotional wounds. Let's say you were bullied in school. Let's say you were abused in some way. You were betrayed or rejected. What happens is there's an emotional wound that comes, kind of like you just twisted an ankle. If you don't heal that properly and to get the right assistance to clear the resentment, it's like an ankle that breaks and heals wrong. And so what happens is you're walking around with a limp. If you stub your toe somewhere or hit your ankle somewhere, or you're playing and you make a jump, you literally re-injure an old wound. So what does that mean for you? It basically means that whatever constraint that's going on right now is likely a triggering of an old wound. And if it is our work, our most important work in life as a human being is to become trigger proof. And if that's the case, then it's our responsibility for making a list of all of those old wounds that we haven't fully healed from, that we just want to forget and not go back into, and do the necessary work to see how it served us. Healing means to make whole and complete. Healing means to make whole and complete. So the question you want to ask is, this constraint that's bothering me in my life right now, where was the old wound? And we do this in my workshops, and when we work with our clients one-on-one, I teach them the overview method, which is the process of taking whatever's constraining you right now and asking yourself the question, what story am I making out of it? What meaning am I making out of it? These are self-inquiry questions that you learn. And usually what happens is the story that you're telling is that you're not enough, that you're not lovable because of what's going on. You're having a fight with your partner, there's rejection, I'm not lovable. Great. That is the old wound that you want to then ask the question, going back, where was the original time? Going back to the time when you were a little boy or a little girl. Usually it'll be mother, father, preacher, teacher, based on interactions and events that happened with them. You were harmed in some way, physically or emotionally. Those are emotional injuries. The resentments and the rejections and the shame and the guilt are emotional injuries. So I want you to ask this question, where is the original emotional injury? Where is that wound coming from, this past resentment? The next question you really want to ask yourself is, based on that event, you want to look back at the event or the events that have resulted or caused you to decide that you didn't matter anymore, that you weren't lovable anymore. For me, there are several things that next week I'm going to show you, literally several reasons why your self-confidence goes down, because from birth and beyond, even before birth, there's intergenerational trauma that we're literally born into, believing that we're not enough. But I want you to make a conscious connection to it right now. What was the main event for you? What event had you deciding that you weren't enough anymore? Because that feeling is so hurtful. That emotional injury of rejection is so painful. we turn around. Instead of getting vulnerable to the pain, we react by getting angry. We get turning it into resentment and anger, which is there to block us from the vulnerability of that disgusting feeling of rejection, okay? Or that disgusting feeling of, I'm not deserving, I'm not worthy. It's scary to look at. The clients that we work with, I call them heroes all the time because they are taking full responsibility to upgrade their intimacy and become trigger-proof so they can be better grandparents, they can be better parents, they can be better leaders, they can be better business people, they can handle their finances better, and they can have healthier relationships because they now have healthier relationships with themselves because their nervous systems aren't tweaked and they're not tweaked with these resentments, which are literally, if these resentments, they're literally in front of you all the time. It's like walking around with an emotional injury. Guess what? You're gonna bump it everywhere you go. Every past resentment you haven't cleared, you're gonna bump into it everywhere you go. So ask yourself this question: do you see yourself consistently being triggered by external things that is bringing things up? It's not your fault, by the way. I'm not here to shame you about it. This was me. I was triggered by the perception of rejection because I was bullied as a kid in school. I needed to be liked by everyone so that I didn't have to feel that disgusting feeling of rejection. And when I would get a twinge of it through criticism, I couldn't freaking handle it. So the impact of that was that people around me, especially my team, sometimes even clients, were afraid to actually tell me the truth because of my reactivity. And it was all because my nervous system was tweaked and I hadn't fully cleared those resentments that were associated. So the question that you want to ask yourself is this, and you want to write these down. You want to look at resentments towards mom, because usually that's the first trauma we experience, separation from mom during the birthing process. James Hollis, PhD, Jungian psychologist, often says all challenges, all trauma is separation trauma, beginning from the separation from the womb. Primary wound, which we don't ever fully recover from. Interesting. So you want to look at mom, any resentments that you have. You want to look especially as well with dad, and then brothers, sisters, past lovers, exes, and like in one of my clients' case, he was feeling blocked and stuck when he was at work. You want to look at work or team. He got into a really bad disagreement with the CEO of his company, a really bitter court battle. And that happened 2 years ago. And ever since then, this past resentment was causing anxiety in him. And it was kind of stunting the growth of his company. So then what we did was we went in and we did the overview method on it. And we found that past resentment was having him feel like a guilt and shame. And we went back to his primary core wound of guilt and shame, and we asked these questions. So the work of the overview method, it's sometimes grueling, and depending on your level of resistance, it can also be easy. And here's the question. I want you to write this down because you're going to take those past resentments and that you have for all these people, and you're going to, through a series, and it's challenging to do it on your own, because if you are stuck with a really deep wound and deep resentment, getting past it and finding gratitude in it, probably quite far-fetched. What you're going to do is you're going to ask the question, how did it serve me? You're going to take whatever you thought was in the way with how they were treating you, even if it was abusive. I had one of my clients, his dad beat the crap out of him quite a bit, and it toughened him, and they grew up in a really dark neighborhood. And when he kind of separated from his dad, through the interactions with his father that he had, he was able to be a leader in a very dangerous part of town. And what happened was he realized that had his father not treated him so poorly, he probably would have been dead. And he opened his heart to his father and cleared the resentment. You think that that's far-fetched and crazy. You can take anything that you were resentful for. He opened his heart to his father and all of a sudden transformed the relationship with his father. Not only healed himself, but healed his father, who's been holding on to guilt for so many years. This other client of mine, the venture capitalist that I was sharing with you about, when we cleared the relationship, the issues with her father, if you're disconnected from mom or dad, or there's a disconnection from those relationships, or you're not whole and complete, if you're a man and you're not whole and complete with mom, guess what? It's going to be impacting all of your romantic relationships. That was what was going on with me. I was completely incomplete with separation trauma from my mother. So I've been doing a lot of the work with clearing the resentment towards her, transforming that relationship, and it's changing the way that I interact with women because I don't see and project all of those old wounds onto her. So what ended up happening with that venture capitalist client of mine, she, within about 2 weeks of clearing the resentment from her father, she actually met Mr. Right. It was spooky. I get a text message and she's like, holy crap. And she didn't realize that this resentment towards dad and her ex-husband from years prior were completely crippling her from actually having a healthy relationship. So the question that I have for you is, these resentments that you have towards mom, dad, brother, sister, past lovers, how has that been impacting your current relationships and your relationship with yourself? Take a moment and ask that. Ask yourself that. I'd love to hear from you. Bella says, yes, I always feel not enough or good enough for anyone, and I don't feel enough for myself. Main event was being abused as a child. Absolutely. You've taken that time. Sorry you've gone through that, but you've taken that event and you've now, on yourself, you're holding on to all of those resentments. And the freedom on the other side, Bella, of clearing those resentments towards them and yourself is unimaginable. Your health transforms. There's a look on your face that completely changes. You can have years of depression resolved. In fact, there's a woman, I want you to look this up. If you can look it up on YouTube, search Dr. Nima Overview Method, OCD, depression, and you're gonna hear Sylvie's story in one of our live training events. She cleared a past resentment towards her father for physical abuse, and literally 50 years of depression was dissolved. And we got it on camera. So I'm gonna post a link later. But it's Sylvie's story. You can look it up on YouTube, Dr. Nima, Depression and OCD with the overview experience. And in our live trainings, we have one coming up in Vancouver, I actually teach you how to do that. It's a process of doing that. So the question you want to ask yourself is, what constraints in my current life can I attribute these old past wounds, these old past traumas? What have those resentments been costing me? Number one. Number two, what would open up in my life if I actually got to work in making a list and clearing them and getting whole and complete, so that wherever you go in the world, you're not afraid of bumping into somebody because you're actually complete with them. Now I understand this is a work in progress, so it's not like you finish. I mean, life goes on and you have breakdowns, but it's important and imperative that you learn the tools to clear from the past and have the tools and the system to move forward. And whenever a breakdown happens, instead of having the breakdown last you this long, you can bounce back in a very short period of time. Those are the tools for the intimacy upgrade that's needed to really create healthy and harmonious relationships. I wanted to invite somebody very special onto our show who jumped in and was scared and nervous, all the same thing, and we went in and cleared a past resentment, and I wanted to share with you what becomes possible when you do that work. Melissa, are you there?
I'm here.
Can you hear me? Oh my goodness, I'm so grateful that you're here. Everybody's there, we can see you. You look good. How's the weather over there in Toronto?
It's not bad. It's not bad, actually. Today, I think it's like 9 degrees.
Thank you so much for being on the show. Whenever I see clients of mine or people that I've worked with, I can't help but go back to when I first met them, or when there was some first resentments, or when we first started working together, the state of affairs in their minds. I can't turn that off. I always go there.
Do we have to go there?
No, but here's the biggest breakthrough I remember. It was in October and it was one of our live trainings. There were cameras so that we could create content for social media. And you put your hand up and you were like, what's with the cameras? I don't really want to be putting my life out there on social media. Do you remember
Absolutely.
that? And so I kind of twisted my fingers last time when I was like, I knew we were going to be talking about clearing past resentments. And I was like, hey, Melissa, would you like to be on our show? I kind of remembered that version of you. And when you were just like, sure, let's do it, I was like, So how cool with that transformation, hey, Melissa?
Yeah, for sure. Actually, it ties into what resentment we're talking about today, because that whole thing was about control for me, right? Like putting stuff out there and not having that control, that was the hard part for me.
Totally. Yeah, you're not alone with that, right? It's like, I need to have control, because if I don't have control and I lose control, what would that mean?
Yeah.
I'm gonna die. It's like I don't trust safety. The world is not safe. I just want to acknowledge you for the huge transformation. You look like you're very safe right now. It's a live broadcast, which, I mean, this is live. Like this is unscripted too. We're just making it up as we go along. But I'm just wanted to tell you how much I love you, and it's been amazing supporting you. The reason why we do what we do is we stand for families. Because if somebody takes on the work, they're healing intergenerational trauma, not just for future generations, but actually for your parents too. I remember when I moved in with my parents last summer to really get to work on this, I was doing the work for them as well, and they really benefited a great deal from that because I'm taking full responsibility and expression. And so I wanted to ask you, through the work that we've done, where was your greatest resentment from your past, and how was that showing up in your current reality for yourself?
So I'm so comfortable talking about it now because it was with my father, and I didn't even know that it was really a resentment until I started to kind of dig into other areas and realizing how that past resentment was affecting so many areas of my life today. But it was something that happened between my dad and I when I was really young. You know, he was just doing the best that he could. It was kind of traumatic for me, the whole event. Not to get into details about it.
How old were you at the time?
I was in grade 7, so I was 12 years old.
Okay.
But it really took my power away, this event. And
Here's the question that I have, because I want everybody who's listening, they'll be able to relate. What's the story that you made about yourself based on what happened? Because something happened and then you turned around and you made up a story about you. What was that?
Yeah, I was bad, that something was wrong with me. There was a lot of shame around what had happened. You know, I just went on through life, and the event happened and it was devastating, it was traumatic, but I kept going. And then as I got older and I realized that it kept showing up for me in my life, in my relationships especially. Like, for instance, my dad and I just had a rocky relationship after that. We went through like even a period where 3 years we didn't even speak to each other. I lost full respect for him, and our relationship was just really, really tough. Non-existent. It was difficult. And then we got to a place after I met my husband where we started to get onto a better, talking and stuff like that. And I had thought that I got over a lot of things. But what I didn't know was that I was judging my husband for a lot
Shocking. You're the first woman to ever do that. For a lot of what? You were judging your husband for what?
For a lot of stuff that happened that was from my dad. Yeah. So I was like, for instance, when we got married, I didn't have a lot of this is what I would love and this is my dream. I had a lot of hell no's. If you do this, hell no. If you do this, no freaking way. And when things showed up in his life, because I lost my power and control, anytime I felt like I wasn't in control,
you'd get triggered and reactive.
I was a fighter. I was like, no fucking way. You are not taking my power back. If you're not, I'm having the last word. And it really, really affected not only my relationship with my father, but with my husband and even with my kids.
Bingo, that's what I was gonna say. Anything unresolved, and I want anybody who's watching or listening to check in. If you ever find yourself with unresolved issues with your parents, you will notice them showing up with your children. This is Freud's repetition compulsion. It's basically the universe's really funny way to get you to love all parts of you, all parts of your life, and by showing you a mirror of what's not healed yet. And so these emotional injuries that you were not fully healed are gonna show up in your marriage, and you're gonna project your father onto your husband. That doesn't help. So anybody who's stuck in relationship limbo, the work becomes, okay, let's leave the partner aside. Let's go back and heal everything with all of these. So what did you notice happening, Melissa, when you went to work on clearing that resistance, the shame, and the resentment towards dad? What opened up for you afterwards when we started digging in there?
So my relationship with my dad opened up big time. I really procrastinated having a conversation with my father about things because I had to bring up something that happened 25 years ago. I thought for sure he didn't even think about it anymore. It was done. But, I had to share with him that I felt like I lost him that day. And he was really real, raw, and honest with me too. And he said he felt like he lost me too. Wow. And so being able to talk about it and like bring it up, and like just I wasn't mad at him anymore, because I realized that he was doing exactly what every parent does, which is the best that they can with what they have.
You get that, right? You're a parent, you know.
Well, yeah, I do, because, you know, I'm not perfect. Just clearing that has helped me to have more empathy towards me too, right? So I don't judge myself as much when I'm a parent, because sometimes I overreact or I do things that I'm like, oh my gosh, that was terrible. But, you know, I don't judge myself, because I know that sometimes I feel like I'm parenting and I can hear myself. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's totally my dad, or that's my mom.
Yeah.
Right? It's just the way that we operate. We learn from our parents, we pass it on and that type of thing. And it's not a bad thing. It's nothing to definitely be ashamed of or to even judge myself for. So it's helped me in that area. Been a huge impact in my relationship with my husband. So anything associated with my father. So, you know, my dad was, you know, a European man, and he had his ways. He had women's roles, men's roles. That's what he knew. And so he raised me that way. Like I was meant to do women's roles, being in the kitchen and, you know, like that type of thing. I can't play hockey because I'm a girl. And so I had I had this like fight in me, like, that's bullshit. There's no way, like, you know. And when I got married, I totally rejected all those women roles, those kind of stereotypical things. And it really affected our marriage with, you know, just living day-to-day stuff. So, and now when I used to clean, it was with so much resistance, and I used to like take so much energy out of me, right?
Got it.
Now it's more like, this is just what we do. Like, it's not, I don't have any strong
You're more present. You're more present. You're at work, or you're doing work around. And the thing is that you're not doing it with resentment.
Yes.
This is what happens is when your nervous system is regulated and you've cleared past resentments. I wrote down here presence. You're more present when you're doing it. So Melissa, thank you so much for showing what's possible. I wanted to acknowledge you for this work. It's a simple concept, but it's not easy. And you've just shown a commitment to consistently bettering yourself and being a work in progress, just like the rest of us in the community. And I'm really grateful to have you as a friend, as somebody to be in the community. And you're now taking on kind of like a leadership role. One of the cool things about it is once you've been doing this work for a while, I can see that you're like this little lighthouse. That's your potential. And I wanted to acknowledge you for that. So thank you so much.
I'm so grateful for you, Nima. I just wanted to share one more thing. It also helped my dad have more respect for me when it came to my parenting. So now his mind is like opened up, and he has shifted like unbelievably, like his mindset and how he is with my kids and our whole conversation. It's shifted with him too. So that was like magical. And thank you so much for everything you've done.
So good. Dude, thank you. Big love to you. Big love to Chris. And I'm grateful that you took your time out of your day and you hurried home and you were on the show for me.
Yes, anytime. Bye.
Absolutely. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Oh, love it. I love it. What becomes possible for you? What becomes possible for you if you take on this work? Because resentment is like taking poison and expecting the other person to die. And that poison from the past is spilling into your present. Here's the thing that I really got from Melissa's share is that it doesn't start with you. The resentment that you had, the traumas that you've experienced intergenerationally, it didn't start with you, but it can end with you. And if you want to break the cycle of abuse and trauma that gets passed down generation to generation, then the way that you break the cycle is by loving it. Love is really the end game of the intimacy upgrade, is to get you to be a more loving and empathetic human being by going back and doing the heroic work of actually taking on that I'm going to be the one at cause for the transformation. Because once you learn this, it's your duty and obligation, not only for future generations, but you can stop that cycle from the past. I realized that I was stuck in that cycle. And it took a huge wake-up call for me to actually say, no, I'm gonna take this on not just for my future generations, but also for my parents, and become the most loving, heart-centered, empathetic human being that I could be. And I'm a work in progress consistently. Everything that I'm teaching is stuff that I'm working on myself, and I'm not always perfect with it, but I'm committed to consistently getting myself back in alignment so that I can, carry forward my mission on this planet, which is to heal and transform human beings into greater versions of themselves. So I really encourage you every single week to show up and participate. I'm really grateful for your contributions, everyone, my clients I see and people who are on. Thank you so much for being here, for being part of the conversation. The fact that you were part of this conversation, you're gonna notice moving forward through your week, you're gonna be more conscious. You're gonna take more ownership of your triggers. Instead of pointing the finger, you're gonna actually take it on, which is the heroic work of being at cause for the transformation of yourself so that you can then ripple for other people. Please join us every week at Wednesday at noon Pacific Central, which is 3 p.m. Eastern. That's Wednesday, so it's a Thursday morning for those of you Aussies in Australia, and I'm grateful wherever you are in the world that you joined in. Please do not hesitate to ask any questions. Hi Gretchen, long time no see, hun. Please do not hesitate to ask any questions, and I might answer it on a Facebook Live or on the next episode. Once again, this is Dr. Nima Rahmany signing off from Vancouver, British Columbia. Thank you for another great episode of Trigger Proof, and thank you, Melissa, once again.